Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is a Thursday edition of Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you, getting you and us ready for an NBA Finals. A Royals game that did not happen, which is moderately interesting for a few different reasons. We'll talk about that as they get ready for some day baseball today. We have those things coming. We've got the Chiefs potentially flirting with Kansas, and look, I'm telling you, this is getting real. So we'll discuss the latest there. Sean Logging, my colleague over at KWCH, has been all over this for the past few days. We'll get him. He's on the road right now, but he's going to hop on here in about 10 minutes to get us updated on the latest there and what he's been able to find out, some information. I know we talked to some economists who study these things about what they think of this potential. So we'll get into all of that, get you the latest there. Big news this morning, the Lakers targeting Dan Hurley out of UConn, which would be monumental and a big ground shaker for college basketball that we can get into as well. Lots of good stuff today. Your participation always invited on the IHOP hotline is one easy way to get in touch with the program. It's brought to you by IHOP, and it is 869-1240. We'll have a couple of text giveaways for you today. We'll give away some HTO, and we'll continue to give away tickets to comedian Nick Swartzen playing out at Century 2 in September. So we'll have both of those throughout the show today. You can watch us on our video stream, which is available for you each and every day on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. We try to repost those out there, Tommy and I, from our personal accounts. Those are easy to find, though. You can just search KFH and get a hold of that. You can also listen to us streaming format, not just over the air, at kfhradio.com and on the Odyssey app. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good to be here. Happy to be sitting here on a Thursday. Looking forward to jumping into it. There's a lot to get to today. Busy show in store for us over the next 2 hours, so looking forward to it.
We got Tim Fitzgerald coming up top of the next hour. He can enlighten us on K-State's newest basketball signing, which is another big one. And we'll ask him the question we've been pondering. Is this the best group Jerome Tang has had? I think it goes without question. It is as of a June 6th roster. But is it, a better roster than even the one that made the NCAA tournament run, which featured 2 NBA players? We'll ask Fitz about that. Among other things going on there at K-State. So that's all coming for you. We, again, invite your participation. We love it, Tommy. I'm back from Miss Kansas. Shout out to the folks in Pratt.
Yeah, how'd that go, by the way?
Hospitable yesterday. It was good. I'm no Mike Schwenke, of course, but we had a good time. I didn't really know what to expect. I've never done anything. You're trying to relate as much as you can, when you're emceeing something like that. My mom entered a pageant 57 years ago. I found out basically on a kind of a dare by her mom, like, I think you should do this. So they just kind of got in, and she did really well. So I told that story, but it was fun. A lot of great people, of course. And it was sort of like a talent showcase of past winners over the last 30 or 40 years, which was really impressive. There were some really, really talented people there. So that was cool. But it's a fun event. It means a lot to that city.
I was thinking about you when you did that yesterday. And, there are, and I'm not super familiar with pageants, but what I do know about hosts of pageants is typically they're one rung below game show hosts as far as like the level of smarminess and, all of that. And so I think it fits perfectly for you, just knowing you. But I also know that a lot of times the guys that host pageants, they have to sing. Like when they crown the winner, they sing. You're so beautiful, Miss America, blah, blah, blah. Did you do that last night?
I was not a part of that, but the actual competition starts tonight. So Schwenke will have to, to grease the pipes and give that a shot. But no, I mean, look, could I sing full of a room of strangers? Does karaoke count? Do I get to have about 6 beers before I do it? Then yeah, it'd be no problem. Stone cold sober might be a problem. Might be a little bit challenging. Game show host. I've long thought game show host, by the way, would be the greatest job on the planet. Like the greatest job on the planet. So that would be good if anybody's out there. I know Pat Sajak's going to retire soon. I could make myself available. Wheel of Fortune. Just to throw that out there in the universe. No, it was fun. It was fun.
I think they've already got a replacement for Sajak.
They do? Who?
Isn't it Carson Daly?
I didn't hear that.
No,
there's no way Carson Daly is the guy.
It's something like that. I'll have to look it up. It's something like that.
It can't be. Oh, it's Ryan Seacrest.
Oh yeah, Ryan
Seacrest. There we go.
That makes
I get
sense.
the two of them confused. Yeah, Seacrest.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Seacrest will do that. He'll do well. He'll be fine. He's got the right energy. Pat Sajak, by the way, hilarious on social media. If you're not easily offended or don't prescribe to whatever. He's funny. Speaking of my mom, have I told the Pat Sajak story on the air?
No.
With my mom. So I took my mom when we used to travel the country for these broadcasting competitions in college. And one of the competitions was in New York. And I was like, my mom's never been able to go to New York. Mom, let's go to New York. You can tag. We'll see. And I talked him into letting her come. Which was wild. I know nobody here has met my mom, but she's never met a stranger, funny, bubbly, all these things. My mom in New York City is an experience. Let me just tell you that. Like bargaining in Chinatown as we've walked through closet walls for illegal handbags. I'm just like, Mom, we got to go. And she's just like haggling. And I'm like, I don't think that's how this works, but it does. And so anyway, we're all of these different hilarious experiences. I think we were outside of like Trump Tower. This would have been in 2009. No. Sorry. This would have been like 2005, I think. Yeah, 2005 or so. So we're outside Trump Tower and coming out of the building somehow or for some reason at the time was Pat Sajak, and he was about to get in a cab. And so I learned the alphabet. My great aunt Pauline and I would watch Wheel of Fortune every day when I was like 2 or 3 years old, and I learned my alphabet from watching Wheel of Fortune. Like, it helped me read and learn and she was hell bent that Pat Sajak was going to hear this story. He did not care. First, he was like, "Okay, crazy woman, I'm gonna just get in my cab." And so as he's just like trying to placate and like nod and be friendly, she just keeps telling her story. He proceeds to then just like get in the cab as he's telling the story. And so she proceeds to sort of like just get in with him and finish her story. Yeah. And she does and hops out and no big deal, like moves on with life. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be an experience. But yeah, big Wheel of Fortune guy, big Price is Right fan.
Did she get a restraining order, showing up at the house or anything?
Nope. She wouldn't have even known that was sort of a strange thing to do. A part of her personality is just to, I don't care. We're all in your world, and it's great, and it's why she's one of the best humans I know, and everybody loves her so much is because she just never met a stranger. It's great. It's fantastic. But that's a Pat Sajak story for you, and one I give her a hard time about to this day. I think she'd probably tell the story differently, but I was standing there. It was great. It was awesome. It was so funny. Anyway, so no, I don't think they're calling me. So we got a lot of good stuff coming today. This Chief stuff, Tommy, is where we'll start because Sean has some stuff he's got to get done. So we want to get him in and get just sort of the latest news on everything and what he's been able to dig up from economists, because there is a big push now to bring the Chiefs across the border. You've got lobbyists involved now, lawmakers. I think the appetite for Missouri might be waning a little bit. Like this is, we've laid this scenario out for 3 years now, and it's just continuing to sort of come true. And, that piece of news is probably different than should Kansas bring the Chiefs off. So we'll discuss this a lot, but let's get the bones of it from Sean. Sean Logging, KWCH reporter, investigator, going to hop on with us real quick on the other side of this to get us all caught up, and then we'll discuss the Chiefs. Could they be coming to Kansas? And does anybody even, are the Royals, even on the table? Is this even a part of this? I got to ask him that, too. I've been a little out of pocket. So we'll do it all next. It's Albracht and Castor. It's a Thursday edition of Sports Daily. We're coming right back.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you on this Thursday. Happy to be joined by my colleague over at KWCH, Sean Logging, who's been all over this Chiefs story the past few days, getting new legs here because there's new and renewed interest, I think, from lawmakers. Sean, so for the Chiefs coming to Kansas, the renewed interest, right, if I understand it correctly, and I've been a little disconnected the last couple days, it's because there's a special session to figure out the other tax stuff that they're trying to get this back on the table during that tax session. Is that right, or why the timing now?
Yeah, that special session is essentially the main reason for all of this. So that's going to be June 18th. Of course, Governor Kelly called that specifically for tax cuts and tax cut legislation, but of course, special session so lawmakers can really kind of do anything they want. It just depends on how long they want to go for that special session.
Okay, that's right. So, all right. So we are here now. So I guess we can tack this from a couple different places. What is the newest thing from Kansas? Is it just that lobbyists are now involved and they're trying to formally put something together, or what has changed in the last, I guess, 72 hours?
Yeah, so kind of the main thing is that the leadership for both the Kansas House and Senate, House Speaker Hawkins and then Senate President Matt basically sent a letter to the Chiefs organization basically offering them to team up as they explore these options or their options for using funds to essentially create a stadium and the related infrastructure thing from like the legislative side, and then the lobbying effort that has really ramped up. Organization kind of started up here.
We got Sean on the road here. Sean, we lost you. We lost you there for just a second, Sean. And I know you're driving, so so you've got lawmakers trying to put this together, and get them over. What happened with Missouri yesterday? Is Missouri sort of backing off of this, or are they trying to save the Chiefs on that side?
Yeah, so they don't want Kansas to kind of take over here. So basically, our sister station up there in Kansas City, KCTV, reported that there's at least one lawmaker there in the Kansas City, Missouri side that was going to be pushing for the Missouri governor to call a special session if Kansas takes any action. So essentially finding their own incentive package or proposing their own means of inducing the Chiefs to just stay where they are or stay on the Kansas City, Missouri side.
Okay. So and the last other thing, and then I'll get to some of what the other things you found out here. Are the Royals a part of any of this, or is this just Chiefs?
It doesn't look like it. That's the thing. Like, that's kind of the notable thing too, is there was no mention of the Royals in the statement or the letter sent by the House Speaker or Senate President. So it seems like their targets are squarely on the Chiefs, and when it comes to that, like, that is largely focused on the Chiefs as well. Like, their branding is essentially football.
Okay, which would lessen the price tag on a star bond, certainly. Now, you've been digging in a little bit, too, on these star bonds, I think, and what they cost and if they're worth it. It's the billion-dollar question, I think, for cities all across the country and regions as they try to understand the financing and the benefits and the incentives of doing these kinds of things. Star bonds are unique. They're unique in the sense that, in theory, these things that they're used for are supposed to pay for themselves. Do people you've spoken with think bringing the Chiefs over could essentially pay for itself through star bonds?
Yeah, so I spoke with a professor at the University of Colorado, Denver. He studies sports facility economics and looks at things like stadium construction and subsidies for it. And so basically he says when it comes to these stadiums themselves, like, they simply do not generate enough sales tax dollars to really basically cover the cost of that debt, the bonds. So that's why you kind of really need to look at these districts, which star bonds, basically you create a district around that project, and the tax dollars or the sales tax dollars from that then go down to pay off that debt. So that's kind of the double-edged sword here too. Like, you have to build a large enough that it can actually support the stadium over the terms of that debt obligation. But that also takes away money from municipalities, counties, and other government organizations that get and use that sales tax dollar. So if you draw it too big, that's less money in the pot for your local government. But if you draw it too small, then you're just not going to make up enough money to actually cover the debt that you're incurring as part of this effort.
Okay. So if that's the case, but and I read some of what we had at K-Witch, like, there's still the problem with it all is, right, is it's hard to understand the intangible economic benefits of these things, right? It's easy to understand the tangible parts, but the intangible parts of why does it benefit, Kansans more to have the Chiefs on their side of the border? That's what even economists are still struggling to understand, right?
Yeah, and that professor I spoke with yesterday basically says right now we just simply don't have any data or any studies to really kind of look at those non-tangible benefits or those non-tangible return on investment. There's no real studies being proposed by the chiefs or the lawmakers to really kind of analyze what in the long term would be gained by actually moving it. Because he was saying one of the unique things about the Chiefs is that it'd be basically staying in the same metro area, but it'd just be on a different side of the border. So, like, usually when a team moves, it's to a different state, to a completely different metro, whereas here it's basically be in the same market that it's currently in. So what is gain versus keeping it in Minnesota or Missouri?
Well, I saw in the number in one of his quotes, and I know we've got just a couple more minutes with you. He equated it based on their studies, $2,100 per fan basically spent there would be the number needed to pay for itself. Now, it didn't sound like he was optimistic that they would hit that number, but I got to tell you, in the NFL, I don't think that's that far off, $2,100. I mean, tickets are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, parking, merchandise, beer. I would be pretty surprised if your season ticket holders didn't spend significantly more than that, quite frankly. Now, I don't know if ticket prices are included in that total, but if ticket prices are included in that total of each fan spending $2,100, I would think they would get there.
Well, that's a big question too. Is just what would the ticket price be in the new stadium? What would concessions go for? What would basically what your spending be in that new stadium? But the economist I was talking with, the professor I was talking with, basically says, like, when it comes to looking at most of the studies, when it comes to what people are willing to spend for sports games, like, that is very much more than what those studies indicate people are actually spending. So, of course, it's still a lot to be determined. That's the big thing right now, is that there's still a lot of questions up in the air and a lot of things that need to be figured out, just how this would all work going forward if it does actually materialize.
Well, let me explain. So I know people don't, I mean, people fill out a survey there. Of course, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to spend $2,100, but I'm looking at the Chiefs Ravens right now, first game of the season. I mean, you're not getting a ticket for less than $300, right? So you go with 2-3 people. If you're even one fan, that's one game, $300. You're spending, $50 on parking. You're spending $50 at least on beer. Like, you're at $400. Are you going to just that one game? I don't know. But then that doesn't account for the people that probably spend $10,000, $20,000 on the Chiefs every year. I just, when I saw that number, I was like, $2,100 a fan. I don't know that's not, I think that might be attainable. Now, in a star bond, if they don't, if the tax revenue does not reach the threshold it does, who does that burden fall on? Does that fall on the Kansas taxpayers? Does that fall on the Chiefs?
So basically it's the investors. So people that are taking on those bonds essentially to fund the project. So take on that debt essentially. But in the long term, like, if it doesn't pan out, then, like, that could hurt the state's credit rating. That could make it harder to take out other bonds and things like that. So that's kind of one of those flip sides of, okay, yeah, it might not be directly on the taxpayers as their responsibility to bail or to basically cover if things don't pan out, but it could still impact the state in other ways.
Okay. Well, Sean, man, we always appreciate your insight on this stuff. I know you're on top of it. I tell people that if I need to know these kinds of things, especially when it comes to the political leanings, I ask Sean. And you can follow Sean on social media at KWCH Sean, SHAWN. You can find his work at kwch.com. Find his Facebook page and look for his reporting today on some D-Day veterans coming back to Abilene, which should be really cool. Sean, we appreciate it. Have a safe trip out and back today in your other work, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jacob.
There goes Sean Logging. He's all over politics, best in town for sure. So follow his work. This is interesting, Tommy. There's a great, really extensive story through the eyes of an economist and things. If you just go to KWCH and look up this story. Legislative leadership attempts to woo chiefs to Kansas would be the story title there. And you'll see some of what we're talking about here. But, the number that this economist threw out per Royals fan was $700 per fan per season. For the Chiefs, it was $2,100 per fan per season. I would think in a new stadium that cost will go up. Otherwise, the cost for a fan will go up, not that $2,100 number, because why else would the Chiefs build a new stadium if they didn't want to charge people more money? I think that's attainable. I think $2,100 per fan when you take the law of averages. Tommy, like if you're going to go to a Chiefs game and you were, let's say you wanted to take your wife and kids, 4 people, it's 4 tickets to a Chiefs game. I don't think you're getting out of there for less than a G. I think you're spending $1,000
easy.
almost to get there.
Easy.
So that's a one-off, one fan. There are far more season ticket holders who probably pay, for 8 tickets. Just like if you bought season tickets for just 2 people, and there are families that do this, you're looking at $5,000 at least for those tickets times 2. That's $10,000. Now, in every game you go, I don't know. I think that might be attainable for the Star Bond to work the way it's supposed to work. Now, some of the other stuff that was interesting, we just didn't have time to get into all this with Sean, is like how big is the footprint of the Star Bond, right? How far and how expansive, if you stay in a hotel are those taxes. If you go to a restaurant are those taxes. Of course, they're going to build all these things around a stadium, you would think, which also goes into the cost. But I don't know. I think that's attainable. And would the Royals do the same? I think the Royals become secondary, which is moderately frightening, by the way, that they're becoming secondary in all this. I don't think that Kansas City's immune to losing the Royals. That's a conversation for another day. This is interesting. And Kansas has shown that they are aggressive with this, and Missouri can't get out of its own way on this. I'm just telling you, I think it's at least 50-50 here. I really do.
Well, and just knowing how aggressive, the state of Kansas is becoming, to where before it was, some backroom conversations and some, everybody was sort of speculating, could it happen, whatever. Now you've got state lawmakers that are just flat out like, yep, that's what we're doing. We're going to do what we can, to bring them over. And we're going to try to use Star Bonds, and we're going to try to do, everything in our power to entice them to come across the border. And when you've got the power of the government behind you in that regard, that's kind of like a freight train, and it's hard to slow down. And they've, especially from what it sounds like in the articles that I've read, have some lawmakers and some politicians in the state that typically are usually with their record against the utilization of Star Bonds that are now, it sounds like, on board with this potentially. And so now you've kind of got, it almost seems like maybe the full contingent of lawmakers, and there might be some exceptions there, but it sort of seems like most everybody's in lockstep, like, yep, we need to take a swing at this. The opportunity is here, and let's see if we can get them to Kansas.
And it is, it's not black and white, it's gray. Every Star Bond is different. The question becomes, is it going to pay for itself? That's so it's I think that the idea of a Star Bond is a great idea for a state like Kansas, which I love Kansas. It is my home now. sometimes you have to do things to entice people here. It is not one of the states that does that naturally in the country right now. So, yes, the idea of a star bond to entice is a good idea. The other thing I think as a taxpayer that has always been intriguing about them to me is if you pick the right ones, it doesn't ever cost me any money in like income taxes, right? It pays for itself by its use, which is logically, I think, a good way to go about things. Like, you let it pay for itself, you get the incentives, and we'll see what happens. So I think that generally, like I wonder too, and I don't know how this would vote out. I don't think it has to. I think it's more of just lawmakers making a call. But I think if you went to a statewide vote, I would be really curious to see what the appetite for that would be statewide. I don't know the answer to that because I thought they would for sure vote it in Jackson County, and they overwhelmingly said no.
Yeah, but what would we be asking the state payers to vote on? Are we asking them
a star bond? A star bond.
Yeah,
I don't think that's how that works.
It doesn't work that way because there's no direct impact to the taxpayer. Correct. So there's really nothing for the taxpayer to vote on. That's why star bonds have been such a popular thing. It would depend upon
though if it doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah, but we're talking 30 years down the line, for that to end up coming into play. And regardless, and I brought it up before. I wonder the overall effectiveness of star bonds, and I know that there is data to back up at least some of the effectiveness.
Some work, some don't.
Some work, some don't. Yeah. It just kind of depends, and I think this would probably be one that would work. I would assume, but we don't know that. But if we're talking about, okay, we're going to put it to a vote for the tax-paying citizens, where there's going to be a direct impact to their pockets. That's going to be different than, hey, do you want to vote? Let's vote yes or no on a star bond, where that's not really going to come out of your pocket. I would imagine, knowing that, like, if that's going to be the vote that Kansans would vote on, I'm sure it would overwhelmingly pass. The only question would be, people outside of Kansas City, are they going to be that, would they be that enthralled to get up and actually go vote on that? It doesn't really impact me. I live in liberal. Like, why do I care, about this one way or another?
You can't do it that way. I mean, if they were trying to take, just tax dollars out of the fund, I would say absolutely not.
Right.
Doesn't benefit most people, but a star bond does, right? It benefits the people that use that use the benefit. So there will be movement here. This will be, it may be a situation where the ball is sort of in Missouri's court on it. But Kansas is going to be aggressive. The other question I would have with all of this, how long is this current window, right? Do you even fit into this current window if you do this? When you think about actually getting a stadium built? You know what I mean? Like, how much longer are we going to get the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs? 10 years? If we're lucky? No, probably not 10, probably 7 or 8.
But don't get me wrong, that matters.
It matters big time.
It matters, but the Chiefs were still making money before the Patrick Mahomes era.
Well, I'm sure the Chiefs were making money. The Chiefs are always making money.
Yeah.
I'm saying the star bond bill?
What I'm saying is that, regardless of who's on the roster, you're going to make more money and you're going to have a lot more success when you've got the face of the NFL and you've got this dynasty and all of that. No doubt about that. I'm not, discounting or diminishing that. But at the same time, I would imagine even the teams that are, 2-15 at the end of each year, they've still probably got profits coming in, at the end of each season to be able to pay some of those things back. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The thing about the NFL and the thing about, the franchises and owners is that everybody talks about like real estate appreciating in value. You want something else that appreciates at a larger level than real estate, it's NFL franchises. And so I don't have any concern about
them. It does.
Right. But again, like they've got to pay this back over time. I'm not ever going to be concerned that they're just not going to have the money to be able to pay it back.
Yeah, I don't know how they get held to task on that. Like, you don't get to make any money till we get our money first. I don't know if it works like the bank does. I mean, governments typically don't work like the bank, but, it's all very complicated and things that go a little bit over our heads. And that's why we bring people like Sean in to help us understand them. So you can go back and listen to that, watch it on the stream there. If
One of
you're
the things
curious
that-
about the latest. What's up, Jed?
I was just going to say, one of the things that I always like to look at, and this was an article from a year or two ago, so that's the numbers that we're talking about. That I mentioned this several times, where they had a dozen or so star bonds at the time, and they noted that, like, let's say it was 12, 11 of the 12 lost money, but the 12th one was the Legends area and the NASCAR track, and it paid for all the rest of them. If you consider that, and you talk about, okay, what's bigger, a NASCAR race where you're going to have a race or two a year, or NFL football?
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is the area around it, but it's a great point, right? Like, how much of this bleeds out from just the stadium? They're going to get concerts there that would also qualify here to that repayment. I would venture to guess, and this would be something that I think needs to be considered too, and why this is way more complicated just than, lawmakers wanting this. You'd want the NFL's involvement, because here's what you'd want to find out. Okay, we're going to get you a new stadium, NFL. We're going to put a roof on it, most likely. We need a Super Bowl. We need a Super Bowl. We need another draft commitment, and we need it to be on this side now, right? Not in downtown Kansas City. It's got to come across the way here. Like, if we're going to do this, NFL, all of these cool things we're doing to capture the buzz around the Chiefs, we're going to need that to happen on the Kansas side of the border so that we can take advantage of this star bond. If you get the NFL's commitment on that, a Super Bowl, most importantly, how many Super Bowls can you commit to us in 30 years? Is that what the star bond is? 30 years? How many Super Bowls can you commit to the Chiefs in 30 years? Can you give us 2? Because if you can do those kinds of things, now we're talking about, this thing's probably going to get paid for. If the World Cup comes, like it will, things like that, right? All of that money then moves over. I find it hard to imagine a scenario where the Chiefs don't pay for themselves. The Royals, different question, probably. I don't think it's out of the realm, by the way, that the Royals would. I mean, the number that the Economist threw out on them was $700 per fan. That's probably a little bit of a stretch per Royals fan. But again, what comes along with that? What are they building with that? Because I would imagine, you get to have a stadium on a star bond, but it's probably that whole area. So if hotels and things are also included in that funding, then you're going to have a lot of people that want to do that want to open those. A lot of business people, a lot of developers that want to race to get in on that. So I would say, my gut says it would be one of the things that actually pays off and does take care of itself. My gut says that lawmakers are very aware of that same thing, and that they are going to be as aggressive as they can be to make this happen. And the longer Missouri sits on its hands, what the hell do the Chiefs care? They're just going to take the best deal. It will not impact their fan base at all which side of that border they play on. So they're just going to take the best deal. And as far as I can tell, the star bond is by far the best deal. But we'll continue to follow it. That special session will happen soon. And I know there's other more important things that have to happen at that special session, but we'll keep our eye on it. You can chime in on it. What do you think? Would it be worth it? 869-1240, the number. You can leave us our comments on our Facebook, YouTube, and X streams as well. Just go to KFH Radio. We got a lot of other things to talk about. We got Dan Hurley. Is he really leaving college basketball? A lot of smoke there this morning. Speaking of the Royals, we'll talk about them on the field. They didn't get on the field yesterday. Now they'll get back on the field this afternoon. It's all coming for you on this Thursday edition of Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. been spending some time with all the news in the last couple of days about the Chiefs and the renewed effort by Kansas lawmakers to perhaps entice them over. You can go back and listen to any of that at kfhradio.com or go to our video stream and just rewind that, right, Tommy? I think it's pretty easy to find that way. So let's set up one of our text giveaways here real quick. Let's start today with I can't remember which order we're in here, but we'll start with the comedy show. So comedian Nick Swardson is coming to Wichita Century 2 Concert Hall on Sunday, September 29th. You can enter to win a pair of tickets by texting the keyword jokes, that's JOKES, to 20357. You get one entry a day. And we'll do this through tomorrow. We'll have 10 lucky winners in total to get a pair of tickets. Again, just text the word jokes, JOKES, to 20357 for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see comedian Nick Swardson at Century 2 Concert Hall in September. Good luck, everybody. Tommy, we've got NBA Finals to talk about today. We've got Tim Fitzgerald hopping on top of the hour to talk about K-State's new basketball commit. Let's touch real quick on some news with the Chiefs, not related to the stadium. They're bringing back McCole Hardman. Okay, fine. I don't know. I'd rather them take a swing with somebody else, but he knows the system. It's fine.
Why is anybody surprised by this? I mean, this news came out, and my first thought was, I figured that was going to happen the entire offseason. I mean, he's been around 2 different stints with the Chiefs, and you with the news with Rashee Rice and what's going to happen with him, and you're trying to bring Xavier Worthy up to speed. You signed Hollywood Brown. There were all of these other veterans that were out there and available, and even a couple that were linked to the Chiefs. And all along, even as they're being linked to the Chiefs, I'm like, McCole Hardman is still there. I said that to you like a couple of weeks ago. We were going through the list. I'm like, McCole Hardman is still a free agent.
Yeah, but I don't like it. Doesn't move my needle.
It doesn't. It shouldn't move anybody's needle. But it's the reality. I mean, he was out there. He's been with the team for a long time. It's like, they're going to probably re-sign him to a 1-year deal. Honestly, and I know that he had some big mistakes and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think that I'd rather have him than MVS, maybe. I'd rather have him than Richie James, maybe. I don't know, because both of those guys, I know MVS ultimately signed with the Bills, but like Richie James is still floating out there. I'd rather have McCole Hardman back, I guess.
Here's the one thing I'll say is that, the kick returns are going to happen now. And I don't know if kick returns rather than punt returns are where they want to use him, but it does give them an option there. I think Richie James would have given them that same option, but getting Hardman with the ball in his hands in space in a situation like a kickoff, okay, maybe. I'll be curious to see who they put back there. I don't know who the best answer is to return those kicks. I just know it's now a factor again in football. So you'd like to have some people that can do it and potentially have game-breaking plays. Maybe there's something to that. I'm not sure if he's ever returned kickoffs. He's returned punts. And I think kickoffs you'd see typically fewer mistakes made on a kickoff than a punt because you have more room to catch the ball, I hope. So maybe there's an opportunity for him there. I don't know how much it matters. It does bring to my brain, though, because just other things happen and we sort of forget about it. I wonder when we're going to get this Rashee Rice suspension and when we get the details of that. Initially, the beats sort of thought that was coming, quote unquote, quickly, and it still could. I think anything before the season at the NFL's pace could classify as quickly. I just wonder if we're getting it before the season, which would be the best case scenario, I think, for the Chiefs. Just lay it on them. What's it going to be? And then they can know how to deal with it. Or in a much probably worse situation, does it linger into the season? And then they just have to sort of wonder, like, well, when is this going to happen?
I mean, don't you think that at least some of that is going to be dictated on the legal process? What happens with the case?
He's pleaded guilty on this one. Like, there's going to be a sentence.
He has, but that's
civil situation.
There's no finality to it at this point. We don't know what those penalties are.
No, I know, but I don't think there's much of a question about what happened.
We know
they could be.
We know there's going to be punishment at some level.
We know what we know. The NFL will investigate this further. I mean, they don't just solely rely on charges brought. If they find other things, they could do so. They could be, and I'm sure that they are. still investigating. They've never moved fast on any of these in the history of the world, right? Like Alvin Kamara basically played a whole season while they were looking into a fight or whatever it was. So I just wonder, it's going to be a problem for the Chiefs if this isn't decided before the season starts. Now you're sitting in a situation where you just sort of have to wonder every week, basically, like, when could this potential suspension come down? If all of a sudden you're in week 5 and the league says 8 games or whatever, and I know you could appeal that and go through all that process, but what's he going to appeal? Right? I guess he can appeal the suspension based on precedent.
And I wonder, and now that we know that it sounds like McCole Hardman is returning to the Chiefs, I mean, we know he's going to be ultimately a non-factor in the wide receiver game, right? Like, he'll be on the depth chart, I'm sure.
You better hope he is.
But what does that mean? It will be all dictated, I'm sure, on the Rashee Rice situation. But is there any upside to McCole Hardman as a wide receiver next year for the Chiefs? He won the caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs.
I don't like that. I like McCole Hardman. I mean, it's not a knock on that. I just don't think he makes them a whole lot better. Does he make them deeper? You could probably make that case, because I think there's as good a chance he's reliable as there is Sky Moore.
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably just as, or maybe even more reliable than Moore and Tony are.
But he's not as talented as either of those guys either. So, which way do you lean? Maybe it's important to have both. It's nice to get him in with the experience. I'll give you that. And if he can return kicks, then I'm kind of on board with it. Like, if he shows he can return kickoffs, I'll sign off on that. I would put Kadarius Toney back there on kickoffs. There's no question about that. If everybody tells us he's electric with the ball in his hands, well, then put the damn ball in his hands. And you got to catch it first. But let's see if he can make some noise in special teams. That could be a pretty good weapon. Both of those guys back there would be pretty good weapons. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Tim Fitzgerald will hop on with us. We'll get his thoughts on the newest K-State basketball recruit, big man out of Kentucky. That'll be fun. And some other things. That's next on Sports Daily.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Albracht and Castor, hour number 2 here on Sports Daily. We'll get you another text giveaway, text contest, I should say, for you to enter in just a little bit. I want to tell you that mornings at KFH, the staff enjoys a great cup of coffee from Prairie Fire Coffee. Always appreciate their support and their coffee. This portion of the program brought to you by Crestview Country Club. Tommy, we've got the Wichita Open coming next week. That'll, of course, be out at Crestview Country Club. And it is quite an event. We are, looking at doing the show 2 days there next week, Thursday and Friday, which should be a lot of fun. If you're out there, come say hello. Do you know exactly where we'll be yet? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So both days, Thursday and Friday, the opening 2 rounds of the Wichita Open, we will be out at the fan zone, the Vornado fan zone at the Wichita Open. And so that'll be fun. They've got, I know it's going to be out the entire weekend where you can buy a ticket into that area. I believe it's covered. And there's all-inclusive drinks, and they've got, they'll have a huge TV out there. You'll be able to party, watch, the golf action, all of that. So we'll be doing the show out there live on both Thursday and Friday next week.
Come stand outside, have some beverages, hang out, listen to the show, watch some golf. Somebody that I'm sure that sounds fairly appetizing to, Tim Fitzgerald, joins us now, our K-State insider. What do you think, Fitz? You come stand around and have some beers and hang out with your boys here next week at the Wichita Open?
Did Tommy say all-inclusive drinks?
All-inclusive drinks, my friend.
Oh,
sounds like a challenge.
That sounds good. I like that. I like anything that does that. How are you boys?
We're good. We're just getting ready for that golf tournament next week out at Crestview. It's awesome. One of my favorite events of the year. Have you ever been to the Wichita Open, Fitz?
No, I don't typically go to golf events because they make me all fall asleep.
Oh, this one would
Oh,
not.
that's on
Don't
TV.
don't misunderstand. This is a party as much as it's a golf event. You can walk the course and watch the amazing golf that happens, or you can go stand in the bleachers at a literal party where there's music blaring in between shots, and it's modeled after that
And
big Phoenix
all
party.
inclusive drinks. I mean, those are
Yes.
the three
Yes.
words right there. All inclusive drinks.
Man, that gets me to go anywhere. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's an old media trick. Too.
Come on down.
To give us free food.
I got a ticket
come
for
down.
you if you want to come on down to Wichita next week.
Nah, I probably shouldn't do that because I will drink all the drinks and then nobody else have drinks. So that wouldn't be
and
fair.
take your shirt off and yell at the golfers and go all Happy Gilmore on it.
All
We know what would happen.
All that.
We know what would happen. All right, Fitz. So Ugana Onyenso, one of the best shot blockers in the country. We've talked for 3 or 4 weeks now about how K-State has a need at center. Well, they filled it with a good player.
Yep.
How did this one happen before we dig in a little bit? And how long had he been on their radar? Is this an NIL flex for K-State, or was it more intricate than that?
You know what? I hadn't thought of that. It might be because, we talked about how they missed out on a couple guys they really wanted early that ended up getting a lot more NIL money than K-State wanted. So they might have had some dry powder to shoot off, and that might have worked. First, I want to say thank you to K-State for getting a guy with a name that looks harder to say than it is.
Yeah,
because the first time I saw it, I was like, oh no, and then I heard it, I'm like, oh, it's literally, you can just say it easily. This is a strange kind of collection of players they're putting together, but boy, this was the missing piece, wasn't it? They needed a true post, someone that could defend, honestly, guys like Hunter Dickinson. I mean, they just didn't have that kind of guy on the roster. Now, Ugana got an enormous upside. We always talk about ceilings. It's way up there because he's still developing his offensive game. That is the hole in his game. He's not known for his offensive prowess. He can score around the rim, but it's pretty much dunks and putbacks. So he's got a ways to go on that. But I think Kansas State feels like they have enough offensive options that that's not going to be completely necessary. Now, Kentucky found some problems with playing him because defense is caught up to how to, kind of not worry about him and worry about everyone else. But this kid is an elite shot blocker, maybe the best in college, and he rebounds well. And that's exactly what K-State needed. They've filled that need now, and they're down to one scholarship, and I think they can kind of relax and figure out what they want to do with that one scholarship because there are some decent options out there. So this was the piece they had to have.
It definitely seems like this is a kid that his upside is tremendous and showed flashes at Kentucky of really being a potentially dominant player, was never really able to put it all together like you mentioned at Kentucky on a consistent basis. What do you think Jerome Tang and his staff will need to do to develop him into being, what could potentially be a guy that is like an all-conference caliber type player?
Yeah, I've already seen some videos of him out there working on his offensive game. And, anymore, people ask centers to do a bunch of stuff that when we were growing up, centers didn't do. And, can he shoot the three? That was unthinkable back then. And I think he's more of a traditional player in the fact that if they can get him to a 12-foot jumper radius, he's going to be really difficult to handle. Because, again, he's extremely athletic and a great shot blocker. So it's not like he's a clumsy oaf. I mean, there's something there. He just hasn't developed that offensive game like everything else. So that's got to be the focus with him the moment he arrives and try to get that out of him. Because if they can, he's got 2 years left. He's going to be incredible. And let's put it this way. He was good enough to consider the NBA draft without that scoring ability. I mean, he's coming out of the process where he received some decent feedback. So we'll see. We'll see what they get out of him. But again, they had to have a defensive presence, a rim protector, and they got it.
All right, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joining us, our K-State insider. I want to look at this class versus the others we've seen. So I went to GoPowerCat 24/7 and pulled the rankings for the classes. This year, currently, it is ranked as the 22nd best transfer class in the country. The overall class is 41st. David Castillo comes in as a top 50 freshman. If I look back to 2023, which was last year, Kaluma and Perry were both big-time transfer names. It was the freshmen that made that class so big. It was overall ranked 23rd, but that's you had three essentially top 100 freshmen coming in with that class. And then the year before that, which Tang didn't have as much time, it ended with getting Keontae, and you had some some holdovers there. So when we look at these, I think, like, for my money, I would say this year's class is the best class, the most talented class, the class that they'll have the ability to work more with. Now, we never know how pieces are going to fit, but I think this is a team now, after this last signing, that if we're talking about expectations, I think we can comfortably say this should be a top 4 or 5 team in the Big 12. And I could be rose-colored glasses there. I don't know what everybody else has done in the portal, but this feels like a team that it can really compete in the league.
I agree. But you're right. When you're doing the transfer portal thing, we've seen it. It happened at K-State last year. It happened to the other programs in the past. It cannot go as planned, and the pieces don't quite fit together. That first year, Keontae shows up late in the process and comes back to basketball. Marquise Noel asserted himself in a way at a level I don't think any of us ever imagined. So some things went right, and the next year things went wrong. And, Brian Gilbert, my basketball expert, beat writer, and myself agree. This is going to tell us a lot about where this program's headed. Which way this group kind of leans. And I have the feeling it's going to be a really good outcome. But you just don't know when you put these pieces together what you're going to get. But I'll say this, David Castillo is ready to play a lot more than any of the guys were last year. And I think he's going to help this team. I think they're comfortable with him being the second point guard behind Doug McDaniel. And I like everything going here. And considering they have one more spot, maybe to go get another great player is very intriguing. And they might fill that next week. They might hang on to that as, other players pop up late in the process. They picked up 2 guys last year who picked a school and then were unhappy. So this is an intriguing group of players. It really is. They got some dudes. Now, if they can put them all together, it could be a really fun brand of basketball because they're hyper athletic and they can get up and down the floor. And I think K-State fans would enjoy that much more than what they saw last year.
Tim, any updates on Arthur Kaluma? And I know that they've got one scholarship remaining. And you mentioned, there are some other targets out there. Is it unlikely at this point that final scholarship will be taken up by Kaluma?
I think unlikely is a good word because it's not definitive, but the chances aren't strong. I think K-State feels like there's some other guys out there that are worthy of a look and maybe an offer. And I think Arthur Kaluma feels the same way about schools. I mean, he's looked at Memphis. And so maybe the two parties will end up back together, but kind of sense that they won't. Again, like your word, it's unlikely, but it could still happen.
I want to go back, Fitz, real quick. You mentioned the state of this program and what this class tells us. I kind of think, let's say S hits the fan and this does not go well with this mix. I don't know how much that would even concern me because every program in the country essentially faces that risk every year. The fact that they are still collecting this talent, I think, tells me what I want to know right now, that they can do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It really is. And something I don't think I mentioned that's important is these aren't all one and done. I mean, there's a lot of younger guys in this class that, are going to be around for multiple years. So I think they've started to realize we need a little bit of stability if it can be found in the transfer portal era, and try to get some guys in here that are going to be pieces that we want around for years. And so maybe next year, the frantic pace of trying to pick up players will be lessened, and they can really lock in on a few guys that they want. So they just have to get a little more stability for the long-term success of the program, whatever that is in this era. I don't know how that's really defined, but trying to rebuild your roster with, 10 new players every year, guys, that's a mess. That's hard to do. That's a lot of work, and I'm sure they're aiming at having a bunch of guys back for next season, and then having less work to do in the portal, and continue to throw in some high school kids. I feel bad for high school kids. It's really difficult to get scholarships and opportunity now at high levels of basketball because of the transfer portal. All this talent is moving up through the ranks and consolidating at the bigger schools.
It's reshuffling. I think it opens more opportunities, though, for some of them to maybe get a D1 offer that they weren't going to get. I'm curious to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, I think it's good for teams in what are non-power conferences because now they can go, maybe get players they weren't able to previously out of the high school ranks, and develop them, and hopefully use what NIL they have to hang on to those players long term. We'll see.
All right, Fitz, what do you guys have going at GoPowerCat.com for us?
Well, I spent yesterday in the studio. Let's see, we just released our PowerCat podcast, our weekly podcast. Tomorrow we'll have another Fighting Ever Fighting conversation with a former player, Blair DeBoard, who was on that 2013 baseball team that went to the Super Regionals and now is an administrator at Mizzou. So that's an interesting conversation Cole Carmody had. My Life of Fitz will come out on Monday with Connor Riley. Great conversation. Connor was in the studio with me. And, we've got a VIP film study of the new player. Yes, and so, and it's really good. It's really enlightening, but it'll be for our subscribers only. And of course, we'll have a lot of baseball content over the weekend as we shift our focus to K-State at Virginia in the Super Regionals. Kind of a fun event.
Hey, I missed it yesterday. Real quick, Fitz. I was out of pocket yesterday. What is the game day and time for K-State baseball?
Friday. Oh boy, 6 or 7.
Time's not as important. It'll be. Yeah, it'll be.
Saturday,
I just
Sunday.
need Friday or Saturday. Okay, so it'll be a Friday.
Yeah,
that's what we sort of anticipate.
Saturday's at 2 p.m. Yeah, Saturday's 2 p.m., which is noon in Vegas, which is what I'm worried about because that's where I'll be.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
Fitz, you get your pass line, get your odds, 6 and an 8, and don't be afraid of the hard ways.
That's just good life advice. That's not even Vegas advice.
You a craps player, Fitz?
No, I'm not.
Oh my God! What a waste of being in Vegas time. All right, fine. Well, you should learn it. It's never too late to learn the greatest game on the planet. All right, Fitz. Go PowerCat.com. What?
All inclusive drinks. There's none of that in Vegas, but there are in Wichita.
There might be if you go. You might be if you go play craps.
Hey, that's why they call Wichita the
the
Vegas of the Midwest. I don't know if you guys knew that,
that's right.
but that's our slogan here.
All the time. I tell people that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Go PowerCat.com.
Cancun in the Midwest.
Yeah, the beaches are good, but we take what we can get. All right. At Life of Fitz. Thanks, Fitz. Let's talk again next week.
You bet.
All right. Yeah. So we've got Friday, 6 o'clock for us here locally in the Cancun of the Midwest. And that'll be against Virginia. Good luck to them.
I thought we were the Midwest Monaco. I thought that was.
Yeah.
There are so many different descriptions of this fine city that we reside in.
The Venice in the Flint Hills. is another.
You know, they always
one we just
also
made
always
up.
call. They always say about Wichita is for lovers. I don't know if you knew that, but there are so many different ways to describe this city.
Well, if we were the Midwest's Monaco, they could have an F1 race on the ring, I-135 and I-235, and up around, maybe K-96 or part of the Turnpike or something, add that into it. Have a great big F1 race once a year or so.
I gotta get to a NASCAR race, and I gotta get to an F1 race in my life. Both of those things need to happen, and I will. But yeah, Wichita, just the crown jewel of the United States of America. We'll come back. Dan Hurley, is he leaving for the NBA? Should the rest of college basketball be a little giddy right now? We'll talk about it next.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be here with you on this Thursday. Very busy Thursday. You can chime in on any of what we've been talking about today if you'd like. You can do that by calling the IHOP hotline, brought to you by IHOP, 869-1240. You can leave your comments on our video stream as well, Facebook, YouTube, X. Let's set this other text giveaway up here. So get this handy. You might want to just hang on to this short code. It's a text to win contest for HTO 20357. You can win some free iced tea, some free coffee from Free Rain Coffee, all available at HTO, East Wichita, West Wichita, Derby. All you got to do is text the keyword T, T-E-A, to that short code 20357. That's the keyword T to 20357. Good luck, everybody out there, and hopefully get your hands on some HTO. Tommy, we make our way through the news of the day that we haven't really gotten to yet because we've added so many other things we've needed to talk about is Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley is potentially interested, I guess, in the Lakers job. That job has been an interesting one for a while. But I would say this, if the Lakers are really interested in Dan Hurley, they would have to make an offer that if you're Dan Hurley would tell you, you're going to be a part of the plan far after LeBron James is done playing. This isn't going to be a one-off appease LeBron James kind of a hire if they were to, because they would have to just offer him so much to get him out of UConn that I wouldn't worry too much about that if I were Hurley. In fact, it's almost like, well, heck yeah, you're going to give me the most high-profile basketball job on the planet. You're going to potentially get me a year or two out of the greatest player of this generation, who's still very much capable of being an awesome player. Anthony Davis is there. And then I can help you guys rebuild this thing. I would think this is pretty appetizing for Dan Hurley. I don't know if he's a great fit in the NBA. I don't know how much I like it for the Lakers, but for Dan Hurley, I would imagine this will be one he has to at least entertain.
Well, and I think that, you can go back to the last time that this happened at this level was Billy Donovan leaving Florida to go to the Chicago Bulls. Or no, he went to the Oklahoma City Thunder first, right? So then he went to the NBA, right? Yep. And now he's with the Bulls.
We saw Brad Stevens do this when he was the hottest name.
That's true. But really, I mean, Billy Donovan was coming off of national championships in the same way that Dan Hurley is coming off of national championships. Brad Stevens had gotten there. He hadn't won championships, but he had gotten there, at least to that point. I don't know. I think that this is really interesting, and I understand if Dan Hurley is interested in this, his motivation behind it, because, of all the reasons you just mentioned, but also the fact that, number one, you're with UConn, and nothing against UConn. They're one of the blue blood programs, but the university is not in the SEC or the Big Ten at this point. We know the way that college athletics is moving. The coach at a prominent college basketball team has to do so much now in recruiting and NIL and, all of this stuff. It's a lot more complicated as a coach than it was, probably 20, 25 years ago. This reminds me, and I saw a comparison on this in one of the articles that I was reading. This does remind me of 20 years ago when the Lakers pursued Mike Krzyzewski, and Krzyzewski ultimately turned it down and remained at Duke. But Coach K did really seriously consider it, according to a bunch of reports at the time. And it makes me wonder if the landscape of college basketball then is like it is now. If it was back, obviously all the situations that we're in right now happening back in 2004. If Coach K would have ultimately taken that job with the Lakers, he probably would have. If you really think about the way that the landscape has changed since then. So it wouldn't shock me if Dan Hurley ends up taking this job. The other thing that wouldn't shock me is if not only Hurley takes the job, but if we aren't really looking at a long-term partnership with him and LeBron. Like I'm thinking like this could be a way for LeBron to say, but you know what? Nothing against Dan Hurley. He's a heck of a coach. He's amazing. And LeBron has complimented him, for the job that he's done with UConn several times. But you know what? I might want to go look somewhere else for my last couple of years in the NBA. That's an easy way out for LeBron. If he maybe wasn't wanting to return to the Lakers anyway, I could see that being, kind of an escape clause for LeBron to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I would imagine and I don't know what the situation is with Bronny and all of that or his future. I would imagine LeBron James would be on board with the Dan Hurley hire. There has to be some piece of LeBron as he ages that wants to back off a little bit too, I would think. And I know that people roll their eyes at that. But at some point, if he's going to keep going, I don't think it's that hard to imagine he just kind of wants to play and not worry too much about all this other stuff that has been so daunting. He's got and he's got to worry about his kid now too and what's going to happen there. So maybe I don't really think it matters, honestly. I think if the Lakers go after Hurley, it's a long-term Hurley move. And
it's a long-term Hurley move. It's not a long-term LeBron move.
No, but it's not going to be. LeBron is nothing is long-term with LeBron. He's earned that right to do whatever he wants now. He's our age and still competing at a high level, but he can easily be like, I'm out, I'm done at any point. So, it's just sort of, you basically know you're getting Anthony Davis probably would be the Dan Hurley appeal or the appeal to Dan Hurley. And is that the right way to go for the Lakers? I don't think it's a bad way to go for the Lakers. I don't know how Dan Hurley translates. I think he probably translates well. He is hard-nosed, and he is I don't know. I'm trying to think of who I would even compare him to in the league. Popovich is hard on players, but in a different way than Tom Thibodeau is seemingly hard on players. It works in the NBA just fine to have those kinds of coaches, but can Hurley step right in and command that out of NBA players like you can with college players? I don't know. And so that makes it a little tricky. You never know with the transition, how that would go. But I imagine it would probably go fine because he is seemingly one of the great basketball minds, just plain and simple, that are out there right now.
And you know why this is a long-term offer or a long-term situation potentially for Hurley is because the Lakers have had a revolving door at head coach ever since Phil Jackson left.
They're sick of that.
They want their next Phil Jackson. They want their next Pat Riley. That's what they're looking for. They've had guys like Byron Scott, and they've had Luke Walton, and they had Mike D'Antoni for a couple of years, and Darvin Ham most recently. Nothing's really worked. And has it all been the fault of the coach, any one of those guys? Not. I mean, there's blame to go around. There's blame to go around for sure. But now it definitely sounds like, according to Adrian Wojnarowski's report, that Lakers ownership and Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, they are desperate to put the foundation in place for a long-term coach for that franchise. They're tired of that revolving door. And so there have been other names that have been floated around, like JJ Redick and other names like that, linked to this job. None of those other names sound like a potential long-term fit, quite like Dan Hurley does. And here's the other nice thing for Dan Hurley. There is a long track record of college coaches going to the NBA and it not panning out for them. More coaches have probably flamed out in the NBA that came from the college ranks than coaches that have made that jump and actually succeeded. And so if it doesn't work for Dan Hurley, if he doesn't win, there's always a soft landing back in college. Look at a guy like John Calipari. Didn't work for him in the pros. Rick Pitino didn't work for him in the pros. Lon Kruger didn't work for him in the pros. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And all of those guys find their way back to the college ranks and have a tremendous amount of success. That same thing can happen for Dan Hurley. So really, it's kind of a low risk, high reward proposition for Hurley because he can always go back to college and have a ton of success there if this doesn't work out for him.
It's almost no risk for Dan Hurley. Right. Because he'll get, if it didn't work, he would get any job he wanted in college basketball. There's always the thought too, like if you're Dan Hurley, how much do you want to deal with what's happening in college? And I think you talked about this right off the top there. How much do you want to deal with what's going on in college and these changes? I wonder all the time why anybody would choose college over the NBA right now. I mean, the work for less money seems tremendously higher in college basketball than it does in the NBA, let alone the the most high-profile basketball job in the world, the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And so I get it. I mean, it's an interesting name, and I don't know, honestly, like, I don't know why this took so long to get out there. Like, why wouldn't the Lakers try to go down this road? We had all this talk about JJ Redick, who's never coached before, and it's like, we got to be done with all that if you're the Lakers. There's Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
Why not give Dan Hurley a call?
I also do think it's pretty notable, and I hadn't even thought about this until just a little while ago. If Dan Hurley takes this job, both reigning national championship coaches in college football and basketball have gone to the pros. Jim Harbaugh and then Dan Hurley, coming off of national championships, going to the professional ranks. I've seen people on social media in the last few hours, come to the conclusion that if this ends up happening, this is an indictment in the world of college athletics and, the trend of, coaches wanting to get the hell out of the college ranks because of the way that things are moving. I mean, this is a lot of money for Dan Hurley, and this is an opportunity to coach the Lakers. I mean, come on now. Come on.
And everybody's replaceable. People are acting like guys are there just won't be any college
and it's almost like this has never happened before, like clutching our pearls, like coaches have always left to go to the pros. And newsflash, I may not be a massive NBA fan, but globally, the NBA is more popular than college basketball is. Globally, the NFL
America,
is more popular than college football is. So, this is not a shock. It's never a shocker when this sort of thing happens. The years and years and years of the speculation that Bill Self was going to go to the NBA, I think just recently, in maybe the last 3 to 5 years, has started to quiet down with the older he's getting and the more content he seems. But that was loud every offseason that, well, he probably won't go to another university, but he could go to the NBA, and so this sort of thing happens all the time. Billy Donovan, we referenced him. That happened 15 years ago. There are so many other coaches, even before then, that were making that jump. This is nothing new. Larry Brown, for God's sakes, won a national championship with the Jayhawks in '88 and went to go coach the Spurs the very next year. In fact, that was the last coach that won a national championship in the NCAA, and the very next year went and coached in the pros. We're talking 35 years ago that happened. So look, this is nothing new. I don't think that you can make this overall indictment of the world of college athletics. And look, even the top coaches are wanting to leave now because of conference realignment and NIL and the transfer portal. That's all bullcrap. This has happened for so long. And if it happens with Danny Hurley, it'll be another example in the long list of this sort of thing taking place in sports.
By the way, Larry Brown won a championship in the NBA as well.
He did.
The Pistons. He translated just fine. I think so. Let's just call it right now. We're not the experts on this. Over under 50%. Dan Hurley more likely to coach the Huskies next year, or more likely to coach the Lakers?
Kind of confusing phrasing. I'm going to say 50%.
Who is he going to coach?
He's going to coach the Lakers.
Guess.
He's going to coach the Lakers.
I think
it's over 50% that he will leave to go.
Yeah, I think so,
I'm going to take the over on that. In fact, I'll probably put it at 80%, 75, 80% that he's going to coach the Lakers.
I don't know what the percentages are. I don't even know why I asked it that way. That's a stupid way to ask that.
I'm really confused on your phrasing.
Yeah, who's he going to coach next year? I agree. I think he's going to go to the Lakers.
I think he will too.
Then the UConn job comes open.
Not only that, every single player on the Huskies has a 30-day opening to enter the transfer portal when their coach leaves. So you're talking about a preseason top 5 team, the reigning national champions, every single player eligible to enter the transfer portal when this happens.
But they can't enter the draft now.
Correct.
I don't think. So they have to either stay or enter the portal. And oh, it never ends. It never ends. And I'm with you. I think he's going to go. It makes too much sense. I don't know why it took this long to get to this point. Why are we talking about JJ Redick as a head coach in the NBA of that team? He may be great. Dude's never coached anything, I don't think. It's like the Gottlieb college basketball stuff. Like, what? And Gottlieb's even coached some, and maybe Redick has too. But why? Like, what are we doing here? Have you not called Dan Hurley? And apparently they have. And so they're probably further into this conversation than then this just happened this morning.
Hey, if Doug Gottlieb can coach a college basketball team, I think you're next. I mean, you ought to be on the short. I mean, you're coaching too. You're coaching third grade girls basketball. Like, you could go and coach at the college ranks if Doug Gottlieb can.
We need more than 3 plays, probably, which is all I was able to come up with in the playbook.
You could take that method of handing out candy bars for rebounds. You could take that to the college ranks, and that would be revolutionary. You'd be the next John Wooden.
It's probably an impermissible benefit, and I would get fired, would be my guess if I did that. I think. I don't know. No, I would have. You want to talk about I would have no interest in that. That grind. I don't know how these dudes have the energy for that grind. It is a grind. And it's a perfect example. If Dan Hurley leaves UConn, guess what you get to do instead of go on vacation in mid-June? Which they wouldn't. They've got summer work right now. But you got to grind it, because now you might have some players you need to potentially entice over. What a wild story if that happens. We'll keep our eye on it. Let's get a little NBA Finals preview. We've got game 1 tonight, and we'll talk about the Royals in some day baseball today, which you'll hear, of course, right here on KFH. That comes up at 12 o'clock, that coverage. We need to get to those 2 things before we wrap up the Thursday. It's Albracht and Castor. We're coming right back.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. We have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
1 tonight. We'll hit this real quick, and then we'll look to the Royals today. Who are you taking in the finals? I guess pretty simply.
I think you have to go with the Celtics. I like the Mavericks. Luka's incredible. If Kyrie does a phenomenal job, and I think that he's got that capability to do so, then, the Mavs can make it interesting. But I just think the Celtics, have the bigger weapons. They've got more firepower. I think they'll get it done.
It's interesting. I mean, there are a lot of outcomes. I hope, and I think this is a long series. I do like the Mavericks plus 6.5 tonight. I will say that. And I think I'm leaning Mavs in the series, especially when we talk about, getting a little better odds that way. But I do like the Mavs plus 6.5 tonight. Game 1, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, but it's at 7:30 tonight. But I just hope, and I do think we're going to get it as a drama-filled series. I hope that Luka and Kyrie embrace being villains in Boston like I think that they will, but it'll be good. Royals play at noon, Tommy. They didn't get to play yesterday, so Brady Singer gets to go today now. First time we'll see him in a while. Remember, he got sick, and they just sort of skipped his spot in the rotation when that happened. So it's been a long time since we've seen Brady Singer pitch. I don't know how I feel about – I kind of – I'll be honest with you. I kind of like that they got one postponed until later in the season. I don't think that's the worst news in the world. Now, if you can get a win in some day baseball here and you can split that series and sort of just kind of kick that can down the road a little bit, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the way things are going at the moment and how they're struggling a bit, I think it might be the best thing that could have happened to get that game out of here and play it later.
Yeah, that was my first thought when the game was postponed. I was out at dinner last night for our son's birthday, and they had Bally Sports or whatever on, and ticker on the bottom said, tonight's game has been postponed, and I'm like, okay, I actually am happy about that. I'm glad they don't have to play tonight. They can play today. They can, like you mentioned, kind of kick that can down the road, regroup a little bit. You get more games against Cleveland later in the season when hopefully you're healthier and you're, playing at a little bit better of a clip. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
It's weird too, because the Royals are more or less healthy right now. Well, the Waka thing is looming, but he wasn't going to pitch in this series anyway. So it's really just, can they stop the bleeding on this while simultaneously playing their most difficult stretch of games that they'll play? And I don't. This is why we've been concerned about this now for a week, is because that's a daunting task.
Sure.
I mean, you get Singer today. I get, and it's a good pitching matchup, and you hope that he feels good and gives you one of those, Singer games, right? That he's really good. But they got to have it. And they thought they had it in game 1. They thought they had everything they needed. They jumped out to a 5-0 lead. You had Lugo on the mound. My apologies, I jinxed it. But, you had him right where you wanted him, and you couldn't do it. So, I'm curious and really can't wait to see Singer take a chance to step up to this, because that's sort of the next evolution for him. I think he has the right attitude for it, just to come out aggressive as hell and get after the Cleveland lineup. But Cleveland's really good. They're not going away. They've got, they got several all-stars in that lineup. Their pitching's good enough. Their bullpen's great. They're not going away, but you got to have it today if you're the Royals. What are we at now? 5 games back?
Yeah, 5 games back. They're 10 games over 500. The Guardians are 20 games over 500 at this point. And I think that it's fair to say, and I know we've been talking about how big of a series this is overall for the Royals. This might be the biggest game that Brady Singer has ever pitched in his young career. Because you have to think back to, the first couple of years of his career, they were really bad and there were not games that mattered at all. And so it was kind of like, whatever, like we'll go out there and we'll try to do what we can. But there wasn't like that pressure that you've got to win. This is the last game of this set. You have to stop the bleeding. If they can now you can get back within 4 games and be back where you started before the series even began against the Guardians. If you can get back to that point, that's still within reach, and even 6 is, but again, with how difficult this stretch is coming up for the Royals, I think you feel a lot better about it. If you are 4 games back, you really dodged a bullet. And I think that rain out yesterday really helped that.
We'll get that game at 12. You'll hear it on KFH. I've got breaking news right now that I'm going to cram in here. So the Chiefs canceled practice today and media availability and everything because apparently a backup player was taken by ambulance to a hospital. He is in stable condition. We do not know yet who this player is, and they will resume practice then tomorrow instead. So this is just happening. The Chiefs have canceled activities today, had to take apparently a backup player by ambulance to an area hospital. He's in stable condition, but we don't know what that means. Doesn't mean everything's fine. It just means he's alive. So we will keep an eye on this. This is going to be, it'll be breaking, I guess, here throughout the afternoon. So it will forgive me if I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm trying to take this in on the fly here, but that's what everybody is reporting. Kind of the same thing. I think they were probably there, and we're not getting a name here, but we'll have one here pretty quick, and we'll maybe not before the end of this show. So just kind of stay tuned for that. But that's certainly not a good situation for the Chiefs here today, and one that's worth watching. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that. Again, you've got Royals baseball. You've got that today at 12 o'clock. You'll get an hour of Rome before the Royals take over for the afternoon here. They'll, of course, cover up then Bob and Jeff, and then you'll pick up Infinity Sports programming after that. But it's a big Royals game, Royals fans. You didn't get one last night. You won't get that makeup game until much later in the season. We're both in agreement that that's a good thing for the Royals. Just let's not worry about that game right now, because this, again, what looms on the schedule could become pretty frightening here in about 14 days of where things may stand. An extra day off, chance to reset again. Hopefully they can do that because they're going to have to win some games against some of baseball's best teams, some of baseball's hottest teams. That includes Cleveland, and they'll wrap up that series today. Hope you had a chance to enter our text contest today, and we will continue that tomorrow. Both of those contests will continue through tomorrow on the texting, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to come on and tell you what else is going on, the network, and get you prepared for the rest of the day. I'll try to dig into this Chiefs medical emergency as well during the break, see if I can't find some more information. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up on a Thursday next.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With more than 25 flavors, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day for half-price cups of tea. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy. have more than 25 flavors. Come try them all for free.
Players. Tommy and I both think he's out. He's going to go to the Lakers, but we'll see. We'll follow that. We'll follow this Chiefs medical situation, and a backup player had to be taken off the field by ambulance to the hospital. They've canceled practice today, so we'll get you updates on both of those tomorrow. Don't forget the Royals come at you at 12 o'clock, an hour of Rome today. Big one against the Guardians. We'll be back here to talk about it tomorrow. For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you then.